What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Base Damage. Hope you're all having a great day today. Today is a little bit of a different video. I wanted to discuss a little bit. I know I talk about like budget decks and how affordable a lot of decks are, and this is going to be kind of showcasing that today. With a lot of stuff that's gone on in Weiss recently, there's been a lot of decks that are very affordable to make, and I've been very, very surprised with two decks in particular. One being quintuplets with the 8 standby. Like if you do a certain version of that, which I made a deck profile for on the channel, it's actually very cheap and very affordable. It's actually crazy how affordable it is. And this version, and as well as the anniversary Alicization or the Alice combo, is another one of those that I'm very, very surprised by how cheap the overall deck is. So I made two versions of the deck. This is the one that I currently own and I'm test playing IRL. But I made another version that's a bit more basic with the non-expensive cards. So just dropping like the level 3 Asuna and the level 0 Lifa. And this is like, this deck right here is stupidly cheap. We'll go over all the price points in a little bit here. But I'm not kidding when I say I used to play, when I first got into Weiss Schwarz, there were always like the level 1 or level 2 engines that always had a price tag to them because they were the key part of the deck. And the level 3 finishers, whatever the main finisher was for the set, also ended up getting very expensive. And there's very good examples of that, say back in the day with Akagi Kai from Kantai Collection was anywhere from like $20 to $25 a pop. Birdcage Diva Yukina stayed and still is between $30 and $40 a pop. Darkness or Yami from To Love Ru is still like I said, between like $30 and $40 to this day, depending on where you look. So finishers and like also the level 1 engines, the level 2 engines, stuff like that. One of the notorious people for this is the level 1 Aaron from Attack on Titan as well. That stayed at like $40 to $50 a pop. Happy Christmas Kasumi. It's all of those, the key engines and key finishers of those decks have always been expensive and are still currently expensive for most of those. I know the Aaron's dropped, etc. But a lot of those cards are still have a price tag to them. Whereas because of how much people are shiny hunting and trying to pull SPs and stuff, there's such a massive influx of cards right now. There's such a big supply of stuff like, the anniversary set, where all the cards here are stupidly expensive. So let's go through and just kind of like price out some stuff. So the main thing that I feel is going to be the core of the Alice deck is obviously going to focus around the level 2 Alice, the level 1 Alice, the level 0s, and the event that lets you mill through the deck. So this Asuna, this particular Asuna right here that lets you mill 3, grab an event. This Misumi that lets you dig up to 4 cards in your deck and add a level 1 or higher card. This Administrator that sends herself to clock to look up to 4 cards from the top of your deck and add a level 1 or higher card as well. Both of those can end up like three different cards can add the event alone. The Asuna specifically grabs events, and each of these can grab a level 1 or higher card. The event we're talking about is Floating Castle Aincrad, which says put the top 4 cards of your deck into the waiting room, choose up to 1 level X or lower character and grab it back to hand. X is equal to the number of crit triggers that you revealed from the 4 cards that you mill. And even the Agile here lets you pay a cost, pitch an anniversary to clock, and look at cards from the top of your deck up to the number of characters your opponent has, and then add one of those cards from your deck to your hand, from the cards revealed to your hand. So you have a lot of cards that make up the core. So the biggest thing for that I wanted to point out, it's about 35-ish cards when you count the Alices, the Climaxes, all the level 0s and everything. It's about 35 cards. It's most of the deck is about It's $18.23. I got this with 3 different sellers, so you do have the shipping and everything from that you have to be mindful of. And then this doesn't count tax. So that's another thing that you have to be mindful of. But that is most of the deck. That's 3/5 of the deck for less than $20. Include tax to that, right at $20, which is honestly kind of crazy. I would not expect this, but now we're going to go a little bit further and look at each of the finishers in the deck. So one of the main ones is obviously, say, this Kirito. It's a very good Kirito. You do have to use this particular Alicization event because it has to be in your memory for his effect. So let's go over each of the finishers. So the first one is this 3/2/10k Power of Divine Authority Kirito. On play, heal 1. So right there, a healer, really good. When this attacks, if you have the Pants trigger and you have Alicization in your memory, put the top card of your deck into your waiting room. Deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the cost of that card plus 1. So you get to burn and then his damage as well. You have other cards in this as well that help this Kirito buff a lot. This particular Asuna gives him a buff and hex proof, so they can't say, you can't deal damage to me type thing. This particular Alice and Yu-Gi-Oh! Gives that same Kirito an effect to pay a cost to mill cards from the top of your deck to burn your opponent based on how many climaxes you mill. So it's really crazy how much good... and there's other cards that support it. There's like a Yu-Gi-Oh! That does some like anti-soul shenanigans. I don't run it personally. Then we have the Argo, which seemed to be the preferred build for a bit until people went to the Silica. I don't run the Silica at all, but I picked up the Argos. So 3/2/10k Rising Expectations Argo. During the turn this card is placed on stage from hand when damage dealt by this card is canceled, you can put the top card of your deck put the top card of your deck into your waiting room. Deal X damage to your opponent. X is equal to the level of that card plus 1. So what cancel burn, and a really powerful cancel burn because you're burning for at least 1 if they cancel your damage. The Climax combo is on a choice trigger. When this card attacks, if the choice is in your Climax area, you can discard 2 cards from hand, deal 3 damage to your opponent. This cancel burn can proc on either the burn damage or Argo's normal soul damage, which is crazy because you're going to poke for 3, and then you're going to poke for 3 with the Argo. If either of those get canceled, just one, it only happens one time, so if one, it can't try to cancel burn on both of them. But if one of those were to get canceled, you can try to cancel burn because of the first effect. So this is a very powerful card. I think you can agree that that is very strong. Both of these are very strong. We're going to also talk about the Silica. I just have it pulled up here because I don't run this Silica. But you're already going to see the Silica is really fucking cheap. So it's a 3/2/10k always friendly Silica. You get to top check cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of characters your opponent has, and add any one card amongst them to hand. When this attacks, you can discard 2 cards if you have the salvage trigger in play and you have a full field of anniversary characters. If you do, deal 2 damage to your opponent, choose up to 2 cards from your opponent's waiting room, return them to their deck, and your opponent shuffles their deck. This seems to be the preferred build. Like a lot of the ones that have won, like the Bushiroad Rumble Online and whatnot, have been the Silica finisher. But let's look at this. The Silica, like I said, it's like 98 cent. The Kirito is 67 cent. And I don't think the Argo... I think the Argos are rare. And I had to pull up the Argo really quick, but this is the Argo. It's a rare. It's only 50 cent. So you have all 3 of the finishers are under $1. And it's not like any of them are... like, all of them have their pros and cons. All of them do either crazy amounts of damage, some kind of burn damage in some way, shape, or form, every single one of them. It just... one's, varied, one's, a fixed 3 damage, and one's a fixed 2 damage, as well as making it so your opponent, it decompresses them a little bit. So the only difference for, say, the Silica build, this is where we're going to talk about the pricey cards, is the Silica will run this Demonic Sword Graham, which I have copies of this, but I don't want to run the Silica version. It's like $10 a pop for this. I don't want to deal with this. So this is just, I don't want to deal with that personally. I have the Argos, and once again, I've priced out a deck with like the Argos and the Kiritos. Like if I picked up all of those cards, with both of these, this deck right here minus the asanas right here, this early play asana, which is very powerful, we're going to talk about in a minute, and this level 0 Lifa. I'm not counting any of this. I'm not counting this or the asana for this price. But I priced out the rest of the cards in here that you need for the Kiratos, for the Alice core, for the Argo cards, and just, like the promos and everything. 66 cards worth for 2 different finishers, and still counting all of the Alice cards, play sets of extra copies. I always count in extra copies for a lot of this. Like I said, with just the Alice core, this does count like extra copies of stuff. But 66 cards for 2 different builds in terms of the finishers, $32, roughly $31.40. This is from 3 different sellers, and this does not count. That ended up not being any shipping because of how much I was able to get. This does not count tax. So let's say $35 just for sake of argument, because I don't know, someone might have different tax than someone else. Mine would probably only add like $2 or $3 to this, but I'm going to say $35 roughly. This is just me, to be able to have about 2 different deck builds. And this is where we talk about the other 2 cards. The Asanas used to be $10 a pop. This is a very powerful card. It's a 3/2/9K. If you have 4 or more anniversary characters, she gets minus a level in hand. This is extremely easy to pull off. When this card is placed on stage from hand, you may pay the cost, which is discarding 1 card. And if you do, put the top card of your clock into your stock. During this card's battle, when the damage you receive is canceled, you may return this card to your hand. So she can possibly bounce back to hand and then heal multiple times. So on release, this was like a $10 card. This is very, very powerful. Is it needed, though? I do not. I was able to get my hands on some for very cheap. Like I said, $4 a pop. So I'm counting 2 copies of it in here. But let's say look at this Argo build. I'm running 2 copies of this. Like, this gives the buff to the Kirito, but I'm still running this in the Argo build despite not having the Kirito. The main thing is it still does the assist. All of your characters in front of this gain 2k power, and it has an on play. You can discard a card to heal the top card of your clock into your stock. The exact same as the Asana. The big difference is it doesn't early play. So this can be a very budget option for not having the asanas. But once again, they've dropped so low. I was counting this for more when the asana was like $10. But it's so fucking low right now that you don't really need it. So the other card, the Bond Between Siblings Lifa, which I'm going to go back to here to... It shows it up a little bit better. Is a 0/500. When this card is placed on stage from your hand, you may choose 1 card in your hand and put it into your stock. That is a very powerful effect. We'll get to that in a second. When this card is placed on stage from hand, you can discard 1 card. If you do, reveal the top card of your deck, choose 1 level X or lower character in your waiting room, return it to your hand. X is equal to the level of the revealed card, and climaxes are regarded as level 0. So, 2 things. 1, it lets you salvage back cards. It lets you, just get rid of other stuff you don't need, and lets you salvage back cards. It will always at least salvage back the level 0s that you need. You're going to be milling a whole bunch with the engine. So the fact that you can grab those cards back and use them like the Asuna, the Misumi, whatever, and use them multiple times makes this a very powerful card. The other thing is the fact of you have to pay stock for the Brainstormer Alice. I'm assuming watching this, you know what the fuck the Alice combo is. You use this card to poop out 3 copies of this. You need to be able to pay a stock because it is a spammable Brainstormer. So in case you somehow don't hit it and you miss a couple times, then you can use this Lifa to toss more cards into your stock to pay for the Brainstorm more. So this is a very powerful card, and this also used to be way higher, but it's down to about $7-ish. I got very, very lucky, and I found 2 copies from different sellers that were each going for about $4 a piece. And I was able to scoop those up. So that's why this deck right here only has 2 copies. But everything else in here, outside of the Asuna, which is, like I said, it's only $4, which you can just completely replace with this Alice and Yu-Gi-Oh! And 2 copies of this Lifa, which you can drop altogether. It's not necessary. It's extremely powerful, extremely helpful, but I do not feel that it is necessary for the deck. It helps you in a pinch. If you, in case you fuck up, in case RNG just says, fuck off and gives you the middle finger. It helps a lot with adjusting and fixing that. But is it necessary? I don't think so, which is why I don't include it in the basic Argo build. So I'm going to put both of the links for this in the description if you want to take a look. But once again, also the price point for that is not included in the total $32-ish. So but let's look at it this way. If you're somehow able to scoop up, you could like, if you had to get one of those two cards, the Asuna or the Lifa, I would highly recommend going for the Lifa more. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to, but because there is a replacement, quote unquote, for the Asuna, I'm not saying you should, but because if you really, really needed to, you can just run this and you still get the heals, because the Argo does not heal. That's one of the big drawbacks of this. It's a very powerful card, but it does not heal. If it did, oh god, this would be fucking broke. But you can replace the Asuna. So if you could somehow snag up 2 copies of this Lifa, let's say you did, and you added $7 to the total of your total purchase. Let's just do some math there. That's $14. With the previous things before, it comes out to, that would be 46 and some change. Once again, with tax, about $50, which is the cost of 2 Trial Deck Pluses. I have an entire video series called Trial by Fire, where I just see if I can take 2 Trial Decks, 2 Trial Deck Pluses, and put them together, because you get playsets of every single card in there, and see what you can do with that just to get into the game. This is over, if you don't count the Lifa and the Asuna, this is cheaper than a typical grab 2 Trial Decks and shove them together. I know the elephant in the room is going to be, oh, but SAO is going to get hit at some point. I'm going to make another video about that in the future, discussing that. Because there are, like I said, there's certain cards that are just too fucking expensive. But there's it's also become such a prevalent deck already in the Bushiroad Rumble Online alone. It's already seen play in Springfest as well. We got some more tournaments, I think, have gone on this past weekend that I'm recording this, and we should have a couple more coming up, so I'm going to be checking Weiss Tea Time for that at some point. The only other thing I would say is going to be a little bit hard to pick up is this Dicey Cafe Gilbert, the anti-change backup. This is such a very, very good card, but it's like $16. Like I said, at one point, this thing shot up to like $23 a pop, and it's come down a little bit. But once the $15 sell out, you go right back up to like $19 and $20 a pop with shipping. So it's really crazy to try to get your hands on this, which is why I didn't include it in the overall deck build as well. Even though I own copies, I didn't include it in the deck build for this video. But it seems that with the anniversary set, it doesn't matter which build you go for the finisher. The main thing is if you can get the other cards to facilitate the Alice combo. And one of the biggest things for getting into any card game is investment. If you don't invest but $30 for 2 different deck builds, I mean, if something does happen to it on the restricted list, that's like negligible in my mind. Like this is cheap enough. Cheaper than the cost of 2 Trial Deck Pluses if you don't try to go for the Lifas and everything. That, like, I'm not saying go for it, but it's honestly very, very affordable if you don't go for like 2 of the particular cards in here. You can replace the Asuna and just work around not having the Lifa. It's kind of crazy to me that Weiss is at this point where I can make what is essentially a meta-relevant deck, because it would still do the exact same thing. What makes the deck broken is pulling out 3 copies of this Alice at level 1 and sitting on them for a majority of the game while just gaining incredible amounts of advantage. You don't even have to clock most turns. Once you get this out, you're just like, okay, cool, my hand's basically full after doing the combo like once. And just sit on that. And you, like, if you can pull it off more than once, you just craft your hand how you want. It's really crazy. You have more than enough stock in the test games and the people that I played against. You have more than enough stock. I've had some games where I've pulled this effect off where you had to pay for and discard a character to do the burn twice. You sit on so much fucking stock that you're able to pull off this crazy ass burn effect with the Kirito version twice. It doesn't happen every single game, but almost every time you can do it at least once. You do try to keep a bunch of like clean stock for some good compression as well, but that's a whole nother discussion for another day. It's the fact of, like, if you can build it for this cheap, why the fuck not? Even if it gets hit, they're just... It seems also with restricted list recently, they don't want to hit the climax combos. They don't want to hit the Alice itself. They're going to hit the other cards. So if you're still... If all your investment is like $30 into this deck for 2 different builds that you can... Honestly, you can still pick up a lot of the other double rare, like the Mother's Rosario Yuki. The progressive build apparently is pretty cool. Oh, that was a level 3, sorry. But being able to pick up all the rest, like the other engines and whatnot in the anniversary set alone. I know one of the people in our Discord was testing out the level 1 Asuna that's in here that has a... I can't remember if it comboed with Mother's Rosario or if it comboed with something else, but even he said that was a pretty solid card. So there's other things you can do and still build some really fun shit from this. For extremely cheap, and I'm flabbergasted. I'm so surprised at this that I can't believe it. I'm not saying this is going to be the best deck ever, but it is a really fun deck, and I like to be able to build fun decks for cheap. And this is hitting all those boxes. As of right now, I'm literally recording this June 1st of 2023. I'm beating a dead horse at this point, so we're going to wrap up the video in a second here. I just wanted to say, if you can build the deck without needing the Leafas, or if you can get them cheap, if you can build the deck without grabbing the Asunas, this is what you're looking at for like 2 different deck builds. Not counting if you pick up, say, the anti-change level 2. If you have friends that have picked up the older cards, they'll probably just be like, yo, here, you can use this or give me some trades or some shit. It's not expensive to get into this. It's just when you try to go into the events like Demonic Sword Graham or the money counter event. I'm not running that in any shape, form, or fashion, but I do own the card because I picked it up years ago. When you can build the rest of this deck for so fucking cheap, why not? Fuck it. Try it out. Like I said, $35. Two different versions of this. I will put the links for both decks in the description. I just wanted to talk price point more than anything because Weiss is in a very interesting situation where you can pick up so many of the cards for cheap because there's such a massive supply for them right now, especially with any new set that comes out. I'm going to be looking for this when, like, say, Avatar drops as well and trying to observe that as well. But right now, Anniversary is kind of crazy right now. That's just me. Like I said, this deck is probably going to get hit at some point, but if you've only invested $35, why the fuck not? Just do it. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. This is just a quick little thing I wanted to record and talk about and just show you the numbers. This is, like, legitimately the numbers of what I did putting together one single cart on TCG Player. And yeah. Like and subscribe if you want. If not, hey, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace.